Good morning and welcome to the Forex Daily Update, brought to you by Pepperstone on Tuesday the 22nd of January 2019. I'm Darren Sinden and you can follow me throughout the day on Twitter by using @DS_Pepperstone. Okay, let's kick off with a look at the overnight changes and price moves to be aware of. A relatively quiet session on the global foreign exchanges. Obviously we had America shut yesterday for Martin Luther King Day, but nonetheless there are some moves worthwhile noting. First of all, we've seen continued weakness in the Australian and New Zealand dollars against the US dollar. The Aussie sliding by around 0.26% against the US currency yesterday. The New Zealand dollar down by a smaller amount, just by 0.12%, but of course the Kiwi had a much bigger fall over the last week. In terms of gains elsewhere for the US dollar, the dollar continued to make headway against the Chinese currency, the yuan, up by around 0.22% over the last 24 hours. And it also made gains, the US dollar, against its near neighbours, the Canadian dollar and the Mexican peso, taking 0.18% and 0.21% off of those currencies respectively. Dollar index for its part trading at 96.38 this morning, modestly better, up by 0.05%, but to my mind still really looking for a decent directional cue from the markets, perhaps Fed interest rate policy, so marking time but heading slightly higher would be my overall summary of dollar index. Okay, what's on the calendar even? Events that may move the markets today. A slightly busier calendar today. Don't forget, of course, that we have the ongoing World Economic Forum from Davos, and in terms of data, at 9:30 a.m. GMT this morning we'll have a raft of earnings and unemployment data out of the UK. Average earnings for November, unemployment rates for the 3 months to November, claimant count and claimant change rates in December, and accompanying that unemployment and earnings data out of the UK, a look at the public sector net borrowing requirement for the UK in December, so a chance for the markets to assess UK government finances in December, and then a pause until 10 a.m. when we'll jump into Europe for the ZEW economic survey data, economic sentiment and current situation data out of Germany for January, and from the Eurozone itself, ZEW economic sentiment data for January as well. Then a pause again, and we jump over the Atlantic to Canada at 13:30 for manufacturing shipments and wholesale sales data for the month of November. We cross over the border, heading down south to the US at 1500 for existing home sales and home sales change data for the month of December. And then a significant break until 21:30 this evening, when we'll have API weekly crude oil stock data for the week of January the 18th. That'll be followed at 22:45 by consumer price index data out of New Zealand. And at 23:50 to round off proceedings, we shall have balance of trade data for Japan for the month of December. Okay then, breaking news and comment that's caught my eye overnight. First of all, the US plans to extradite jailed Huawei executive, or Huawei executive I should say, Meng Wanzhou from Canada, says the FT, and that may well stoke tensions between the US and China as far as trade talks are concerned. Meanwhile, South Korea's Q4 2018 GDP has beaten expectations, coming in at +1%, a 5-quarter high for growth in the country, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail later on in the video. Brazil's new president, Jair Bolsonaro, will speak today in Davos. I'm sure the markets will be very interested to hear what he's got to say. Remember, he was elected on a reform agenda. And Shinzo Abe and Vladimir Putin will meet to discuss disputed territories in the Northern Pacific. These are issues that date back to the end of World War II. Okay, food for thought and something to take away with you into the trading day and beyond. Well, why not think about this? The question I'd like to ask is the South Korean economy even turning a corner? Here's the gross domestic product chart for South Korea, dating back all the way to 2008. And as you can see, it's largely been on a downtrend since the latter part of 2010. But those recent numbers suggest that we could be breaking out of that downtrend, and maybe the situation on the ground in Korea is improving. But remember, GDP of course is a lagging indicator. If we look at something that's more of a forward indicator or forward-looking indicator, such as Korean manufacturing PMI, well, actually that tells us that things are picking up. Look, they've rounded and risen in the latter part of 2018 into 2019, so that's a positive thing. That said, level of exports from South Korea, remember it's very much an export-led economy in South Korea, still heading down. So we'll need to see a pickup in exports out of South Korea before we can be certain, I think, that the economy is back on an even keel and heading better. Okay, please take a moment to read this risk warning. Trading CFDs and foreign exchange on margin can be a risky business. If you're in any doubt about those risks or the suitability of leverage products for you, then please do contact your Pepperstone account representatives. And do take a moment, please, to read this risk warning thoroughly. Thank you for your time.